All right, folks, let's get going. Thanks so much for being on. And again, if you haven't taken that poll, click on it quick at the bottom right. We'll reveal the answers here. And again, as we go, use the chat box for any questions or insights. I'll keep an eye on it as we go. We have some great advisors we're going to be interviewing who are event machines. We're going to get a lot of insights from them. So in this, we'll go through some concepts when it comes to marketing and events that will set up the interviews. We're going to learn from these advisors, get their insights on events, how they approach them, what they're doing these days, what's working. And then we're going to go into some breakout groups where you get a chance to talk to other advisors about what you learned as a best practice you want to implement, or what are other things that you can share or learn from the others. So again, keep the phones muted until we get to those breakout rooms, and go ahead and use the chat box for any questions or any things that you have coming up here. So gosh, this is one of my absolute favorite topics here. And event marketing, we've deemed this funny term purple teeth marketing. For those of you who know Michael Hancock, he deemed this term purple teeth marketing. Michael likes to drink wine. And if you heard him on our past Target Harvest webinar series, he talked a little bit about that he enjoys wine. Enjoying wine with other people is sort of become an event for him. And he said, my best kind of marketing is purple teeth marketing, when I drink red wine and his teeth turn purple. So it's a great phrase, but it just goes back to events when you do something fun with other people. That's what we're going to dig in here today. So I'll be your host, John Randall. I think I know all of you. Travis Cheney couldn't be on today. We got some great guests. One of our best marketers ever in Ameriprise and D2, Trevor Shakiba, is going to be on. We're going to hear from him. David Wilson, big practice down in Houston, Texas, does lots of events. We're going to hear from him as well on what he's doing as far as events, and we'll go through some examples along the way here. So, event marketing in general, to me, it's all about the fun events when you're doing something that's not business with others, and something where you get to interact with the other people. It's something everyone enjoys. That's really the essence of event marketing. And there isn't a silver bullet that works for everybody. 20 years ago when I started, seminars were hot, and you could do mailings to people and speak at a seminar, and everyone sort of did that around the country. It doesn't really work these days, but there isn't like a universal type of event that works. It really comes around, what are the interests of you as a human being, and what are the interests of your connectors, your clients, the people that might refer you to others. I think the real magic happens when you are doing something fun with a client that you really enjoy. They enjoy whatever the fun is, and there's other people invited that also enjoy the fun. When that convergence happens, that's where the greatest referrals of all time occur. And just keep in mind that in this whole concept of targeting and harvesting, that events, just like digital marketing, a lot of it really supports how advisors tend to meet their clients most often through some kind of introduction. To me, events are a very easy way for people to meet their advisor. It creates a very comfortable venue for that introduction to happen. So keep that in mind as we go, that your mindset around these events, it's really an easy way to facilitate introductions to others is the key. So the possibilities with these are really endless. So, these days we're in a new world where up until March, most of your events were in person with other people. There was very little virtual events going on around the country. Then suddenly, as our million D2 webinars we had to share what was working out there that we were doing weekly, virtual marketing and virtual events became really popular. Now is the country's in various phases of getting back to doing things. Some people are going to get out to a restaurant again. It's a weird hybrid place where the virtual events, everyone's not completely stuck at home and bored, so they're not as well attended, but they still can really work if it's something fun and there's a reason to get people together. So events, they can be anything, and we'll talk more about what's working and what isn't. At this point, they don't have to be painful as important. You should do what you enjoy doing and what your attendees enjoy doing. There should be no pain involved in events. It should be fun. I think the mistake sometimes advisors make is they'll try and copy an event that somebody else was doing, something that they did that they thought would work, and it just doesn't quite work out. So keep in mind, they should be fun. They should be enjoyable for you and all parties involved. That's really a critical component here. Don't do something because someone else did it. Do what you enjoy, because that's where the magic happens. When you enjoy it, other people are enjoying it. That is the best kind of events here. So we've got lots of examples we're going to go through. So be thinking about what events you might enjoy, what things your clients enjoy. We'll just go through a bunch of examples here to get some ideas. This was a picture of a cooking class that during the quarantine months, Michael Shaw hosted. This is his house. He had an event, a real chef come there for the virtual event, and they recorded it, they broadcasted it. It was really cool to be able to do that. So a great picture of it. But here's a lot of the examples, which D2 has put on a lot of these to demonstrate how you can do events. We, of course, got the wine tastings that we did. We've had some bourbon tastings. We've seen advisors do beer tastings, especially if there's a neat local brewery or something you can get out to people that's local. Cooking classes have been very popular. And I think it's because everyone eats food, and people probably cooked more in the last 6 months than usual. That's been really fun. Grilling, I know our grilling webinar was really popular that a lot of you were on, but that's a good one. The comedian event we did has been great. We've seen some advisors do that where you have a comedian on and you laugh for a little bit, is great. Could be music related. Could put on a little mini concert. Have a songwriter, as you said, grilling, whether it's, I'm starting to see people do things outside these days, whether it's, an activity like golf or riding go-karts, going fishing, other kind of, sports or fun things to do with others, or other things you might enjoy, like playing poker, having a trivia night. I've seen fantasy football, whatever things you enjoy and others enjoy, remember, is the whole key here. So I heard a couple great ones recently that advisors did with wholesalers, where they did a virtual wine tasting from the comfort of their house, but there was somebody at a winery and did a virtual tour of a winery in California while you're trying and tasting that particular wine. The winemaker's there and tells you about it. So you can get really creative and do some neat things in this strange COVID world. But if we're not in that we have to stay at home kind of phase, I think any of these events could be in person. They could also be creatively put on as a virtual type event. So lots of examples. Again, this is a small sampling of what we've seen recently or events that we've demonstrated at D2. There's endless ones that are working. If you need an event guide, I'll just mention along the way, I mentioned at the end, we have a lot of event guides we put together for these type of events, like a wine tasting, bourbon tasting, cooking class. Our team has put together guides of how to put these on. So if you're looking to put some of these on in person or virtually, just let us know, email your D2 coach, and we'll get you some of these as a follow-up here. So endless examples. I think here we're in this, again, this unique time where, not that long ago, 6 months ago, all of you had events planned in person, then suddenly we're forced to switch to make them virtual here. So I think that the best results from any events, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, they've really been centered around a connector, which is hopefully a really good client who thinks so highly of you and your services that they're willing to tell others, and they're comfortable getting guests or their friends together for something fun with you. It's not a salesy business event. It's, hey, let's do something fun together as a group. And so that's really the key here. If you can get one person that you build an event around and they invite guests, that's the ultimate formula. I've heard over the years so many times that advisors will say, well, I put on an event, but the same clients keep showing up and they don't bring any guests. And that's what we want to get out of. We want to get to a point where it's mostly guests at your events, again, whether they're virtual or in person. It's a really critical factor. So if you go back to your top shelf exercise, your referral tree exercise, think back about the niche marketing webinar that we did. That's really where you need to get down to and really investigate who can be the connector, who just has access to others, who could we build an event around. That's really some of the best events that we've seen here. Now, you might need to coach your client a little bit on how to invite people. Now, all of you probably have those clients that just get it. Whatever they say works. Guests show up to events. Whatever they say when they refer somebody, it just happens. The people who are referred, they become clients. So those are nice facets, but it's not always the case. Sometimes that's the gap where it's not you working with the client to put on the right thing. It's sometimes the way the client is inviting others might not work. They might be saying, well, my financial advisor is putting on an event and you should attend. It sounds like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get sold. I'd rather go get a root canal. Whereas if they positioned it differently, which might be, I'm so excited for this event. Here's the value about it. It's going to be such a great time. Why don't we go together? It's a very different invite when you kind of coach the client on what to say there. So there's really a two-way street there. You've got to be really excited about it. You've got to help the clients be excited about it, and how they position with others really makes a big difference. So these virtual events, it's critical that they're interactive. You've got to have some back and forth. If they're just listening to somebody for hours on end, it gets pretty bored. So some kind of interactiveness, if you can facilitate that, is big. Again, fun is really big. Informal, no business, just connecting with other human beings. That's what's really working most. Again, no selling, no business. We can talk about at the end how to turn these new prospects that are coming into meetings and calls and some follow-up here. But it's really important not to have too much business in these things. That kind of sours these events. So follow-up. Oh my gosh, this is probably the next biggest gap that I see with practices, that they'll take the leaps of saying, I want to put on an event. They'll work with a client to build an event around them, and they'll do the event. It's really fun. And then they get to the office the next day and, oh my gosh, it's a busy day. There's lots of meetings. The week goes by and nothing happened with all the guests. Follow-up was key. And I even think if you're doing this formula of centering events around people who can bring others, it's really important to follow up with them. And I'd almost follow up with them first and say, oh my gosh, thank you for inviting people. That was so much fun. What did you think? What do you think we could improve? How did your guest enjoy it? It sounds like a couple of them want me to follow up with them. What's your thoughts there? Who do you think I should be talking to? And they're the gatekeeper sometimes to these people. So, but now that you've gotten access to them, to the guests, that opens the door to some kind of follow-up. So a handwritten note saying thank you for attending. Many of you that have attended our D2 events get a photo in the mail within the next week as a thank you, and maybe a picture with you with other advisors that you were with, or your team. I think these things go a long way. It's really easy to do. I mean, these are not expensive follow-ups. They just take a little bit of effort to write a note, or pictures are very inexpensive, but that follow-up is key. And it's a big gap. And I would say it's one of the most critical parts of doing events. If you're going to do events, there's a lot of work in the lead up to making sure you're getting guests, or in other words, prospects to attend. And then the other important part is that follow-up, to make sure that you are getting to those people afterwards, whether it's through your client or the connector, or you have access or permission to go directly to the guest to follow up. So critical. And we'll hear that from our interviews here, the other advisors on what's working for them. And here's another aspect to tie in digital marketing that we talked about a couple months ago on these is, you know what, leverage social media. I think not so much to get the word out if it's an exclusive event. If it's more of a broader event for many people, sure, get the word out that way. But I think it's neat to do a social media follow-up, to have pictures of the event and what fun it was to do something with this person. You know, that can really create some stir. And advisors will always ask me, well, I don't want to make another client feel bad because they saw that I did an event with somebody else and not with them. And if we're doing the type of events that we're saying really, really work, where it's centered around one connector who can give you access to other people, that's a good thing. If a client's upset they weren't invited, you could say, hey, this was centered around one person who is such a great client. They wanted to introduce you to others, and it was an exclusive event for them. And hey, if you want to do the same thing, I would love to do this. If you want to get a group of people together, I will absolutely facilitate this event. And the advisors that do that, I'm telling you, they've gotten multiple events out of sharing what they're doing and getting other clients to say, that looked like fun. I could bring my friends to that too. And we not only have a good time, but maybe some of them get connected to you and are better off. So leverage the social media, get the word out about these things. But the follow-up, again, is key. It's all about the front end and the back end of these events are really the critical aspects here. So again, we've got a lot of tips that we have written out when it comes to virtual events. You know, technology is probably the biggest challenge for these. And just test it out in advance. Do maybe a dry run through with some team members. Have them log in from different devices, like maybe their phone or an iPad. You know, not everyone out there has Ameriprise computers. So don't test it on your Ameriprise computers. Test it on non-Ameriprise computers, other devices that your clients might be using to check this stuff out. You'd be surprised how many people are, you know, viewing these things on like an iPad type device or just their phone. And hey, it works really well. You know, people can participate in these. Gosh, I did some of the D2 webinars from my back deck from my phone, and it works really well. You can, you know, see and hear me, and you can see, you know, other people in the slides. It works just fine. So just test it ahead of time. That's a major gap, especially if you got something like a cooking show. I know there's one practice. I think it's Wednesday. They've got a full dry run of a cooking program they're going to do just to make sure it's 100%. The cameras are working, the internet's working, whatever goes on during the event's working. Test, and make sure that you're ready. And look, your attendees are probably going to have tech problems too. You know, if you're inviting them to WebEx, they've never been on WebEx. You know, they might need to help them out to get on. If you're using Microsoft Teams, which is awesome, great program that a lot of you are getting access to here, make sure that they can access it. It's not too hard. They can access it on a computer, but some of them, if they're doing it on a device like a tablet or an iPad or some kind of phone, they need to download an app. So do that in advance. And that could be someone from your team reaches out, says, we're so excited to have you part of this event. Let's just make sure your technology works. And hey, I think when it comes to guests and prospects, what a great way to get access to all their information before, to at least get their email address or their phone number and talk to them and say, we just want to walk you through to make sure you make this really special event, that whatever it may be. It's a great way to help them beforehand. Live in the event, a lot of you have access to texting now through Hearsay, or just do regular texting for people. Let that be available for any questions or any kind of like live support. I think is pretty big, and at least knowing who's coming in advance is nice. That's where you can really make these special. And I think more so virtual events, this really applies for. So if you're doing a cooking class, hey, you could have the ingredients sent to, if it's top clients and top prospects are going to be on, you can have those things sent in advance. If there's like our bourbon events did, hey, go buy these bourbons at your local store. But I think you could have, wine delivered for wine tasting, or a local beer delivered from a local brewery for their tasting. Get that information, kind of prepare ahead of time. Some really big tips for virtual. So we're just going to do one breakout today. We'll have you done before the top of the hour, so it'll be a little bit shorter webinar. I think we should dive right into these interviews and hear from some of the best, what they're doing in their events, what's worked, how people are shifting digitally. So Trevor's been a great story, as many of you heard from over the years. Grew his practice by over 10 times in a 10-year period. Actually finished around 2.8 million last year in 2019. And now is a D2 coach, and he's helping people implement these things and do marketing. So Trevor, thanks for being on and letting us interview you today.
You can see and hear me.
Yes, I can hear you great. Looks like you're sending video, so we're good, my friend. So let's go through the essence of events. And let's talk about a few different aspects. So first, Trevor, you did so many different types of events in your practice over many, many years. So let's go back to what kind of events you were doing and what really worked from those events.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's evolved, right? Especially from 2010 to last year. I think one thing I would put out there for all the advisors that are on the call or are going to be listening on the replay is do events. That's how you're going to get better, but you've got to be willing to be terrible initially, and we certainly were terrible. I mean, we had all those same problems. We had not as many people showing up as we wanted. We had, the wholesaler combo events where it was so awkward. I was just like cringing. I also had multiple events in the beginning where not enough guests came. But I figured it out through trial and error. I think the good thing here for a lot of advisors now is like learn from my mistakes. But we did every type of event you could possibly imagine. I mean, literally, big events, small events, education events. Believe it or not, I even did an event on an annuity. I mean, good gosh, that had to have been the worst event anyone's ever done of all time with a wholesaler. Technology worked sometimes. Technology didn't work. So we learned a lot from that. And then once we figured out what did work, we consistently replicated those events. And it was all about a process. And we got really good at that process and that system.
So let's talk about that. How did you decide on these events? Because you've tried many different things. You narrowed down some things that worked. So what was that decision process like?
Well, I think it was, based on data and results, obviously, but it's more to it than that. And I talk about this all the time. I'm sure a lot of folks on the call or video have heard my story, but I always think it comes down to two questions. How many people know what you do, like really, truly know what you do as an elite CFP or someone that delivers comprehensive financial advice above and beyond just people knowing that you're in investments or insurance or something like that? And did you expand that number of people? You're trying to expand that number of people every day. I considered that a successful event. Not if I got a brand new client or two new clients 3 months after. So I think the first and foremost is how many people came? Was it your best clients? Did you deepen that relationship? Were you able to leverage social media, especially now? And then were there guests there? So additional new qualified people know about your practice or know what you do. To me, that is a successful event.
I like what you said, the data, paying attention to these events, that what do you get out of them? What was our investment in the event? What was the return on the event? I think that's really important lesson for advisors there, that sometimes events that advisors are doing, they don't lead to anything. If you really evaluate it and pay attention to it, gosh, is it really, is it really worth it to do this one? Sometimes other events just lead to really great things. So, so, so for the things that you did do, what was the process like for planning these events out, running these events? What was your role? What was the team's role in getting ready for these things?
Yeah. So first and foremost, you want to have fun. That is what people want to do. They want to have fun. And I'm currently doing my Marketing Minute series right now on events. So if you're not on that, shoot me an email. I'll get you on my email list, or just subscribe to the D2 channel and check out all those videos. But look, you have to think about it from different perspectives here. So from my perspective, it's very different now that I have a 5 and a 2-year-old and everything else that's going on in my life. So if you want me to virtually come to your event, or if it's in person, it's got to be something that grabs my attention, Christina's attention, and we're like, wow, that sounds cool. That would be a fun evening and worth it for us to get a babysitter and do all the things that we've got to do to be able to attend that event. So just keep that in mind. No one wants to attend an event, virtually or otherwise, on anything related to education. So I can tell you, as many events as we did in my practice, it was very rare that we did something on education. There had to be a huge catalyst. So we did a Social Security event every other year because there was such an interest in that topic. Otherwise, I mean, look, no one wants to hear, this is my opinion, very few people want to hear or go really deep into, what the market's doing or how you can tweak your asset allocation. And by the way, any of those clients that really want to hear that, I probably don't want them as clients. So that's number one. It has to be a super cool, fun event. Like, that goes without saying. You've got to figure out how to wow clients, make it memorable, take pictures, have something at the end. If you're doing a bourbon event, you're going to give them a bottle of bourbon with something etched on it, specifically gifts that last. So, you get that extra marketing component. You've got to figure out how to leverage social media. That's something we did really good early on with retirement parties and birthday lunches and taking pictures and tagging people. And I was like, holy cow, my advisor's not taking me out for a birthday lunch or doing this event. But so have fun. And I think that goes without saying. I'll pause because I have a couple of thoughts on what the biggest mistake advisors make, which is probably the same that you have, John.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's hit real quick. We talked about the big gaps are usually in before the events, after the events. We'll probably hit on a lot of those. So let's talk about before the events. What are some of the critical things that you did? And what are some of the mistakes that advisors can make before an event?
Yeah, so this is the most important thing. And I talk about it in my Marketing Minute video that's going out this Friday. And I made this. So by the way, I made all these mistakes and then some, okay? The invite almost doesn't matter at all. No one at this point pays that much attention to an invite. Okay, we used to spend all this money to send out invites in the mail. That's a complete waste of money unless it's a very, very high-end, specialized event. Don't waste money there. What we did is we figured out how to be compliant, and we would get the invite, and then we would get it approved, and we would send it out, and we would spend a lot more time on the email, getting people's attention through the subject line. And saying something funny with 2 or 3 paragraphs. People aren't going to read more than that, at least trying to get their attention. But even that, a lot of people aren't going to pay attention. They're either going to see it and then they're going to forget about it, or they won't even read or open that email, or they'll just delete it. The most important part of an event, I think it's of anything, is the follow-up call right after the invite. And I'd be glad to role play that, or you can see it in my Marketing Minute video. But we would send out this invite with an email attached to it, and then the next week we're calling to promote. my team is, and we're breaking up the clients who we're calling. We had a specialized way that we called. We were direct, and it's like you said, John. You hear this from advisors all the time, where they're not getting the right clients, not enough clients, and especially guests. And the reason for that is very, very obvious. It's because you're not asking for what you want. Clients, most of them, are not going to read your mind. Right? There's some clients that, of course, they're just referral magnets. They want people to come, and you want to invite those people all the time. They're super influential. Everyone else, you've got to tell them what you want, and that's how we did it, was in that follow-up call to make sure they got the invite, tell them how great the event was going to be, and then tell them what we wanted.
Yeah, you're nailing some big points here. Just the item everyone should pay attention to is that, listen, busy, successful people, for them to take the time for one of your events, I mean, that's a lot. And then on top of that, for them to invite other people, I mean, it's very unlikely for it to happen on its own. So Trevor, let's go through that. I mean, what are some of the elements you would do, personally inviting somebody to an event? What does that sound like to get them over that hurdle of should I even do this, and should I even put in the effort to invite other people?
Yeah, so what we would do is we would, and it depends on the event, but I would always have and role play this with my team because I wanted them to do it in a specific way. But I still would make some of those calls to certain clients. But the way that we did it would be something like this. Hey, John, Trevor, Shakiba here. How are you, man? Great. Awesome. Hey, I'm calling. I wanted to make sure that you got my invite. I know how much you and Kathleen love fine wine and food. In fact, you, out of all of my clients, probably know more about wine and fine food than anyone. So I wanted to make sure that you got my invite. We just emailed that out. Did you get that?
Yep, sure did.
And then yep, awesome, man. Well, I wanted to make a quick call, let you know how excited I am to have you guys there. I hope you're going to attend or planning to attend. We're trying to get a final head count on who's coming, how much food, really understand that part of the event. The other thing I want to ask, John, is a big favor for you to invite some other super classy people just like yourself that really enjoy wine and food, because we're putting a lot of effort into this, and just let me know. But for now, do you think you're attending, and anyone that's coming with you?
I wasn't sure, but gosh, this sounds amazing. I think I need to be there. And I got a couple of neighbors that are foodies and winos like me and Kathleen. So gosh, I'll forward an email to them, see if they can come out too.
Awesome. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put you down tentatively. What do you think, for 6?
Sure. Sounds great.
Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and put you down. Hope they can come, John. Even if they can't, no worries. I'm so excited to see you and Kathleen there. Just let me know. Give us some advance notice on that. But, man, look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
So that's huge there. I mean, what a difference in just getting a random email invite or receiving something in the mail. I think that's a big gap that advisors have. There's not the personal introduction. So think about it. Trevor would take the time to personally make that call, and that's a big gap that a lot of practices have. Now, I like what Trevor said. He leveraged his team sometimes to make some of these. Now, Trevor himself would call the most important clients or connectors, and as you go down from there, you can segment and have other people on your team do the same. But be careful not to delegate too much in marketing. Yes, setting up the event and those things, that's 100% you can delegate. You can even delegate someone tracking the investment and the return on investment in there. But you personally inviting people is such a critical part on the front end here. Now, how about the back end, Trevor? What's some best practices to follow up with people after events, and maybe what's some gaps or fails that advisors are having on the back end?
Yeah, so this is the second piece. Again, it assumes a phenomenal experience and event. You have to deliver there. Again, have a ton of fun. Whatever it's going to be, it needs to be fantastic, right? Memories. You want to create memories too. I didn't really mention that. Try to create memories. But what I would do at an event was never bring up business besides maybe a welcome and maybe a short commercial depending on the event. Okay, but business always comes up as you're making the rounds and you're talking to people and shaking hands. But this is the second biggest mistake: is for whatever reason people don't follow up or they don't do it in a very timely manner. And so we would always follow up. It was a big deal whenever the event was held. Is I wanted my team to create leads immediately, and for us it was different from advisor to advisor. But I was old school. I wanted it on a piece of paper, name, email, phone number. Who did they come with? And then I'm following up immediately, John, because the longer you wait, it's like an exponential decrease every day.
Yes.
So if you think you're going to wait a week or 2 weeks, it's very unlikely. They may actually forget who you are by that point. But it's a real easy call if you follow up. If you do a great event and you follow up, you do the event Thursday or Friday and you're following up Monday afternoon, right? Or it could be even sooner than that. It's a very easy call. Again, we'll be glad to role play that. But you just gotta immediately follow up. And I like your idea of following up with the clients first, because it's super valuable for them to bring those people. Maybe you do that right after the event, and then you follow up that next after the weekend with the guest.
Yeah, it's a that exponential decline over time. I think it's big. I built most of my practice from it was referrals, but a lot of it was through events. I manufactured access to people and did it through events. And I noticed every 24 hours that was waited to follow up, there was a 50% decline in follow-up rate. So if it didn't happen within 24 hours, it drops by 50%. 24 hours after that, there's a 25% chance. 24 hours after that is a 12.5% chance. And it kept declining. So I even found that if I did an event on Thursday evening, if I was waiting until Monday or Tuesday to follow up, they were like, John, who? So it's a great point that if you're going to have an event, reserve time the morning after to follow up with people. And that's when you've got to make those calls, send texts, emails, write handwritten notes, whatever's going to happen. That's the key. Because remember, when you get back to the office, you're probably going to be busy. You're going to have stuff going on. You're going to have client meetings. And that's the danger here, is that the follow-up doesn't happen. So reserve time with your team. Make sure it happens. These are awesome, awesome tips, Trevor. I highly recommend getting on his emails if you're not. The Friday videos have been fantastic. They're free for now, so enjoy them. But just email us, or you can email me, email Trevor if you want to get on those. So really great insights, Trevor. Thanks so much for being on here.
You bet. All the best.
Awesome. Well, let's go to our next guest who's on, Dave Wilson. Dave was in the same office as Trevor and ended up being Trevor's successor for his practice. And Dave's been on quite a journey over the years of, a long time ago, not doing many events. Now he's like an event machine and has lots of action going. So Dave, thanks so much for being on the call here.
Yeah, thanks, John. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you great. So let's talk about just your progression over the years from events, what it was like, a long time ago over the years, and kind of what's progressed to now being an in-person machine and a virtual machine of events. What's that journey been like?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, we would really focus on a big client Christmas event where we'd have, it's more clients than really not many guests, honestly, at that time of the year, typically with the way we were doing things. And we'd sprinkle in maybe a golf tournament when we wanted to buy off something big. And I used to do the golf tournament with Trevor back in the day, and then it got to be, so big that we branched off. And, I had difficulties, just like Trevor mentioned, about getting some of the same people, the same referrals, or the same guests coming, and not getting enough diversity there. So, there's a lot of learning that you have to experience when you go through these events, and it's like Trevor said, I agree with it. There's no bad event, because you're either going to learn something from it, or at least you're going to get some exposure from it, or maybe both. So maybe you have a bad event that you didn't get much attendance, but you still got exposure and goodwill out there to clients that, hey, you're active, you're doing things, and that's an energy that people want to be around, right? So
Awesome insights, really great
yeah.
insights. So let's just look back at the last year. I mean, you've done a ton of events in the last year. Share with us some highlights. What were some of the events you're doing, and what did you find were working the best?
So, we had a event or two in the beginning of the year, but then everything went COVID style. So then we got really into virtual and, listening to a lot of opinions, talking with folks like yourself and Trevor and trying to, beg, borrow, and steal what other people or other advisors are doing and finding successful. We try to get active in ourselves. And I think one thing that's always stuck in my mind that, now is just that activity will lead to results. If you just stay consistent in that activity and continue to be that kind of person, it does yield results. And sometimes you'll get results a month later, a quarter later. But if you are consistent in that activity, then those results will start to be more consistent, right? Versus sprinkled throughout whatever part of the year. But so some of the things we've experienced is, how to do a virtual event, what kind of events, how to connect with your clients. We've done all kinds of mediums out there, whether it's Facebook Live, WebEx, Zoom, you name it. We've tried it, I think, so far. And so we've had some pros and cons there. But what's worked really well is that we've learned a lot about maybe going forward, how to keep virtual events a part of our normal event calendar. And specifically, one thing Trevor mentioned was the educational events. I think they bring value and they can have value for certain segments of your client base. And in this time, a virtual education event, there's nothing better than that. I mean, we had a Social Security event on, virtually, where we had the speaker chimed in, and we would normally do exactly what Trevor said. We'd have a dinner with, maybe 30 to 40 people, and they'd show up, and that's at least $100 a person. If you're doing heavy apps and some drinks or light dinner and drinks, whatever, it's $100 a person to put on a decent event in the venue. So that's, let's say it's 35 people. Well, that's $3,500 minimum that you're going to spend on that, plus a speaker who's another $250. So you're probably not going to get the prospects going to educational events. Typically, it's hard to get someone coming to a Social Security event. It's not something always fun to talk about, right? I think you get more prospect engagement when you have something fun that's like, wow, that sounds fun to go to get the babysitter to get out and get the wife and all that kind of stuff. Education sometimes isn't the big attraction to just people run to the door, right? But it still adds value. So the Social Security event we did was virtual this time. We spent $250 on the speaker. We did it virtually. We recorded it, right? We had 35 people on the virtual event, and they were engaging, asking questions, same as they were in person. I paid no dinner. I paid no drinks, just $250 for the speaker, and everyone still received that value, And the recording as well, different from doing the in person. We had a couple prospects that we had come in recently where they might have missed the event, and it could have been applicable for them. Well, just after the initial meeting with the prospects, we emailed them the recording to say, hey, I'm sorry you missed this event. Hey, great, we have it on recording. Let me send it to you because I know that information will be good or maybe useful for you. So at the minute they're trying to make the decision about maybe moving forward with you or the beginning of the relationship with you, you send this video of that event, boom, there's instant value that's added to them right there, So that's worked really well for us, I think, in terms of seeing that, how it works in the future for us, and will continue to be a part of our marketing calendar.
That's great to hear that this kind of hybrid of both styles, I think, is a great insight. I think that's definitely going to be here to stay. You're right that virtual events are going to be around. I mean, people have gotten used to them, and what a great way to educate people on hot topics, whether it's market volatility, some kind of big change in something that's going on. I mean, it's a great way to get people together with very low to no cost. Just a little bit of effort there, which is great. But one thing I like about Dave is Dave implemented like every different type of event. He really had an awesome series going with a lot of different things that continues to go and different creative things, which is I think is great. But again, it's around the things that Dave and his advisors like, that the clients like. I think it's really important to pay attention to that. So So what have been your insights, Dave, either just getting ready, getting people to events to attend? You've had some good attendance. What's the follow-up like? What's really worth getting people there and follow up with people to get clients?
So, the magic's in the mix. That's obviously something you and Trevor have always said. And that's true because you'll have some events that are specific, like the Social Security. That's a specific group of people, a certain age, right? And then we did a Medicare enrollment webinar as well, just before I guess the timing to where you sign up for is coming on there. So that's a separate group of people. Then there could be events you do that are basically the whole practice can be invited, right? All clients, all ages. So those are different things. So I think we've definitely mixed it up. We did the fantasy football one. That's one that I think, it's been a tough year. It's something we thought about backing out of, but you know what? Even with COVID times, let's just do it. Let's put it out there and get that engagement with people, period, for doing something. So that's one of those ones that so far didn't have as much success, but the educational ones did have more success. We got our golf tournament lined up for 2 weeks from now. We're going to follow protocols. People are actually really excited, I think, about getting out and doing something. So if you're not doing a golf tournament, you could have a record turnout in these COVID times with people that have nowhere to go, no vacation to take, something to get outdoors. I mean, I think it's really encouraging and a positive thing to get people out, and I think they may just jump on it and really be excited about it. So, we changed some of the things we're going to do with it to make sure we're not putting anybody, quote, at risk and making everyone feel safe in coming. And but golf to me is a very safe sport to kind of engage people with, and hopefully your area has already got that opened up. So that's in 2 weeks. We've reconfirmed our foursomes. We've got almost a full tournament, doubled up at every hole. So it's going to be a pretty good group. And the golf tournament's really good because it's mostly prospects. That's one that you have a client and they fill a foursome. So it's one client with 3 guests, and then that's great numbers right there. You can't beat that. So the other guys are excited about it because they have a lot of good foursomes coming. And 2 weeks after that, we got on a virtual with our estate planner doing some virtual education. And then 2 weeks after that, we've got virtual online. That's going to be a follow-up on our cooking series. I think that has had the most success. And that's really engaged people well. They're at home, they're eating at home, they're cooking out. I mean, I think it's been a great engagement. So we've got our next one, and we're hoping to have our best viewership on that one. I'll say the word viewership.
Yeah, that's a great insight, and I would mirror that. I've heard from lots of practices. Anything cooking related has been the most popular. As it's been that way for D2 as well. So great insights, Dave. Any tips or maybe advice you give for advisors that are looking to build up to your volume of events?
Well, just find something and do it. That failure doesn't matter. I mean, honestly, if you look foolish and silly doing something, people will probably stop and watch the video even more. I mean, it's let's go see him. Oh my gosh, did you see what David did? Oh my gosh. If they come to your website and come see you, hey, that's great. So we're doing the cooking one. I think that to me has really good possibilities. Our last one was on Facebook Live, which to me is the same medium we're going to use for this next one. Facebook Live was a great way to do it, especially if you have a nice, a friend network built out. We connected with a local meat market to do this. We also did it with a local restaurant where we went and interviewed them, talk about different cuts of meat, talk about what's prime, what's select, what's choice, talk about fajita. I mean, all kinds of things that people are cooking out. We engaged this meat market group when the owner there. And so with that, a lot of things happened. It was a Facebook Live event. People just, would watch it. It's on your Facebook there. People can go back and watch it. We also tagged in with the meat markets, so all their contacts, all their friends came to our site or came to check it out too. When you put it out to your clients, the other benefit you get is that when you put it out to your clients that you're going to do it on Facebook Live, you'll get some of these maybe older clients that are saying, well, how do I get to that? Well, okay, first you got to just find us on Facebook, friend us, then we'll link you to our site, then come in and watch it there. So you increase the number of friends you had who are clients already that are part of your network to really expand the number there and then kind of get them on there. I think that helped out. And in the end, that last one we had over 2,300 views from the last one we did, which is a tremendous number, even if they're just looking for a couple seconds. or a couple minutes or whatever they look for, they're looking at you, right? So 2,300 views is pretty powerful, and I hope we'll get more of this next one. So
pretty awesome stuff. Nice. Well, thanks so much for sharing, Dave. Thanks for being on. Really great things. If there's any questions for Dave, go ahead and post them in the chat or email them to me. I'll pass them along. Meredith, why don't we go to breakout groups? This is a great point to talk with other advisors, other people are on here, and talk about what best practices resonated with you most. What things are you going to implement and why? And then you'll have some time to share some best practices with each other. So there'll be a D2
basically a desert with some
in each of these. And let me just make sure we're all unmuted here. So there'll be a D2 coach in each one. So just be sure to press on your screen to enter the room, and you'll get in there. Make sure you're unmuted, and let's go for it. So share some best practices and what you're going to implement. Awesome, everyone. Great insights and great sharing there in those breakout rooms. Excellent job. So as we wrap up, we have some resources for you. We've got a whole workbook dedicated to events. It's called the Purple Teeth Marketing Workbook. If you're looking to host some of these unique events that we've talked about, like a cooking class or wine tasting, I mean, these things have been really popular. We have guides. D2 has guides of how to facilitate these and put these on. Harvard had a great suggestion that Ameriprise has got some stuff now, especially around a cooking class, that you can just pay them and they put on the whole thing for you. They just need the names. So lots of great insights there. But let us know. Talk to your D2 coach if you want the latest Purple Teeth Marketing, basically event marketing workbook. If you need some guides, we got them all out here. So just reach out. Feel free to reach out to me, Travis, whoever you work with at D2. All are great coaches. Sherry, Steve, Mike Brink, Katie's on here. Thank you so much, Meredith, from our digital marketing team, running things here today and keeping this thing on track. So we'll end a little bit early so you can spend more time implementing and getting ready for your events, maybe calling some people and inviting them to upcoming events or getting your next round of events ready. Hey, it's prime time right now. This time of year is awesome. I think leading up to the holidays, this is really an awesome time of year to get connected with people. I think this year is going to be unique, that I think we'll have access to people even around the holidays, more so than usual. May not be as much traveling around and as many holiday parties as in the past. So go for it. Hit the gas pedal on these things. They are really working. They can really give you access. So plan out the rest of the year. We've got some, we're not too far away from looking at 2021 in October. We'll be looking at that. D2 Live, if you're comfortable being there in person in Nashville, we've got a gigantic room and we'll be very spread out. It'll be very safe. I traveled a few weeks ago for my doctorate. I was very impressed with how safe it was to travel. I was in a big giant room and everyone was spread out, and it was just fine. So if you're comfortable being there in person, D2 Live, get registered. We're limiting how many people can be there, so get on it. And if you can't be there in person, no problem. We're going to have a virtual version of it just a few weeks after, it looks like. But yeah, plan out the rest of this year, get your events going, start thinking ahead to next year, and let's go for it. So everyone, stay bullish out there, stay awesome. We'll see you in your next coaching session. Take care.